It's Tuesday, November 29th.
From inside the WTOP newsroom, this is the DMV Download Podcast, brought to you by Steamfitters Local 602. Get an estimate and learn more at steamfitters-602.org.
Today, we talked to our friend and colleague Neal Augenstein, who on Sunday shared he's fighting lung cancer. It all started with a cough. We talked to Neal about his diagnosis, the plan for his treatment, and his choice to share the news publicly.
Right now, I'm feeling strong. Thankfully, I'm relatively young. I'm 63. In relatively good health, besides having cancer. So let's keep going.
Part of the reason he's sharing his story is to help others recognize the symptoms of lung cancer, which often goes undiagnosed.
Somebody can have lung cancer in them for quite a while before they start coughing.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Megan Cloherty.
And I'm Luke Garrett. For the last 25 years, Neal Augenstein has covered breaking news, tech, crime, and just about everything that comes his way for WTOP.
But on Sunday, he announced he's got the fight of his life ahead after being diagnosed with adenocarcinoma, a slow-growing lung cancer that spread to a lymph node in his chest. Neal has kindly offered to share his story here with us in hopes of helping others and raising awareness to a type of cancer that often goes undiagnosed. Neal, thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate that.
Hello, my friends. How are you?
Good.
Good.
We wanted to start with the symptoms because I just mentioned it does go undiagnosed for so many people. And in sharing on Twitter, kind of the beginning of how this started, can you tell us what your symptoms were and where this began?
Sure. Back in September, I realized that I was coughing a bunch. I had what seemed like a dry cough, and a dry cough means that you're not coughing stuff up. When you have a cold or when you have the flu and you cough, you expectorate some and something
Right.
comes up. That's referred to as a productive cough, which is generally your lungs getting rid of what's not there. But I had this, and obviously continue to have this dry cough, which just means that I cough. There have been times where I cough enough that it sort of hurts my chest in the same way that anybody's chest hurts when they cough a lot. But a dry cough can have different causes. I went to my doctor, and he thought maybe it was seasonal allergies, which makes sense because I've never been diagnosed with them. I do take my share of Claritin and Zyrtec and other over-the-counter stuff to so my nose isn't running, but. So I tried some antibiotics that didn't, that didn't work. So, my dad, by the way, did die of lung cancer when he was 85.
Oh, wow.
He was a longtime smoker. I've never smoked, but he was diagnosed when he was 80. So, something in the back of my mind made me think that, I'll keep an eye on that. Eventually, after the second round, excuse me, of antibiotics didn't work, my internist sent me for a chest X-ray, and that came back with something that was suspicious. They could see in the very first chest X-ray a small mass in my left lung, and the doctor recommended a CAT scan for more complete, a better look at what was going on. I had that, and that still showed that mass there, and some other little junk in my lungs, which could have been pneumonia, or it could have been other sort of some sort of infection. But it was getting more clear that I might have something that would be that should be taken a look at. I was referred to a pulmonologist. Pulmonologist deals with breathing, and he did the same. We looked at what it could be, but the goal was to rule out cancer. I mean, I knew that from the beginning, that the whole idea of going through this would be to rule out cancer. And while I certainly had enough time while they were figuring out what it was to alternate between thinking that, it's just pneumonia or, something else that
Right.
when I find the right antibiotic, it'll go away. I went between that and I went the total other way. Thinking that cancer was ravaging my entire body, and I was doomed.
That was such a human thing to think, oh, it's fine, it's nothing. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna, you like go back and forth. Right. Yeah.
So between us, the waiting was the difficult part. Finally, I had an outpatient exam planned for a bronchoscopy with a biopsy, a bronchoscopy is when they go in with a narrow tube while you're asleep. That goes down your windpipe, and they can take little bits of the mass and whatever else they see down there, and they can check that out. And I got checked into the hospital a few days earlier because I wasn't feeling well. I mean, I was feeling tired and anxiously. I mean, I was feeling worried.
Right.
And so I was very glad to go in there and and get it looked at to try to figure out once and for all what it was.
And Neal, you're a reporter, so we know, you must be researching the hell out of, this diagnosis. So what do you know about adenocarcinoma?
Yeah.
Well, as we were, I'm a newbie at this, just like you guys, man. I had a couple weeks to
Right.
research and try to steer away from some of the scary stuff and outdated stuff that Google might provide. I've been trying to keep up to date on what some of the newer treatments were in the event that I was that there was a positive diagnosis. So, I did realize that there have been huge changes in treatments for lung cancer. Lung cancer is, I think it's the most common cancer there is. It is also the most deadly. But since it's the most common, I knew that there would be lots of different treatments that were being worked on. And you can just listen to WTOP and you'll hear ads for different different trials, different medications that are proving themselves to be helpful. So I am learning more. I've learned about staging after you get diagnosed with cancer, and I'm sure I think I may have been lucky. I've been treated by the ANOVA Shar Cancer Institute, which is obviously part of ANOVA, and the evening that I was diagnosed, my oncologist came in to my room that evening at 10 o'clock and told me, very calmly and very reassuredly that there was going to be a meeting on Monday, and I was going to be meeting with him and my radiologist and a surgeon. So they had the whole team already mobilized and working. They were already doing biomarker testing on my tumor to figure out whether I would be eligible for certain targeted therapies that work very well if you have a certain kind of gene mutation. So all of this stuff started,
instantaneously.
Instantaneously, yeah. And I'll tell you, it was, let me share something with you. I mean, I think that I thought to myself, I don't think I could take if a doctor said to me, "You have cancer." I thought that my head would explode if somebody told me that. I will tell you that they didn't say that. What they said is there are some abnormalities, and the second sentence did mention that it looked like cancer, but thankfully knowing it was much better than the worry.
Mm.
And I lived through hearing that sentence, and soon after that, I was and I am working on a plan, looking to see what I can do to get get rid of this cough and to live a long, healthy life. And
Mm.
I'm, the I'm overwhelmed by the compassion and the expertise and the kindness that
Yeah.
the medical professionals that I've dealt with have shown. And I'm ready to go. I mean, let's get going with treatment.
I'm so glad they had just like right out of the gate before they even told you they were already moving on a plan. That's so good to hear. I can hear that sometimes you're having trouble even finishing a sentence, and I feel bad that we're making you talk at this length. Can you take a deep breath, or as far as broadcasting, how difficult is that?
well, well, you bring up a good part about the magic of radio.
Yeah.
If I'm working from home, I can in the radio newsroom. In the anchors have a button called a cough button, which
Right.
they can call, they can push if they're going to cough, and it momentarily mutes their microphone so the audience doesn't hear it.
Right.
Now, at home in my basement, I don't have the cough button, but I can when I'm doing a recorded piece. Stop recording
Right.
and start again, and eventually I don't think the audience has heard too much of a difference in my voice. You're right. It does make it difficult to talk. I cough less when I'm not talking.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be kind of uncomfortable to be standing next to somebody and interview them and be
Mm.
coughing all over them. But I'm doing the best I can. I think that I know how to say excuse me when I
Well,
cough.
I couldn't tell on your report this morning, Neil. I'll tell you that, and it just
Well,
sounds like it's going to be a lot of working around it. But it's admirable that you're still working. You're still trying to do it while
Right.
you're kind of have this nagging cough that you're working through.
well, thank you. I mean, I am not able to breathe and talk at the same time like broadcasters normally do. So what I'm doing now is I'm taking a deeper breath and holding my breath and then talking
Right.
until I run out of breath.
Mm.
So that's the lifting the secret on lifting the curtain
Right.
on how I'm doing that. But it's
Well,
not that difficult.
people
to
have
do.
wanted your secrets for a long time, so I like that we're getting to the bottom of this.
That's true. And Neal, you shared this news on Twitter, and there's been an outpouring of support. Last night even I found myself just, scrolling through all these people, these listeners, even, VDOT, really reaching out to you and supporting you, hearing this news. What's that been like? And, why did you initially think to really share this news with the WTOP audience?
I can't even verbalize how heartwarming that is. I've gotten private emails from newsmakers who I've covered over the years. I won't embarrass them by naming them, but they're people who who I've disagreed with, people who I've agreed with over the years, and I think even more importantly, I'm hearing from people who've just been WTOP listeners for years. One fellow said he's been listening to me since he was a kid. I said that long.
You're like, thank you.
But people obviously there's something wonderful about radio, the connection that a listener and the person whose voice they hear coming through the car speaker. That's part of what makes radio so wonderful. Of course, you add Twitter, you add Facebook with chance where you can sort of engage with people in a little bit more of a personal way than you would on the air. But to to hear the success stories that people have been willing to share, cancer that they've been succeeding with, or a family member who was diagnosed 10 years ago and is now 85 years old and going strong. I'm finding that to be incredibly empowering. I mean, today I'm looking forward to getting my treatment going. Right now, it tentatively looks like I'll be doing chemo and radiation at the same time, starting before Christmas. I from what I'm hearing, I should be able to continue to work. I might get a little bit of acid reflux because of its proximity to my esophagus, but my voice box is okay, so my dulcet tones should not be affected by
Oh my goodness.
this whole treatment.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. It's
But,
it's really wonderful that when people reach out and share their stories and try and offer help, and in the spirit of helping others, we wanted to share, just to give you guys some background on this type of cancer. A new study came out earlier this month that found the 5-year survival rate for lung cancer has increased from 21% to 25%. The figure is much lower for patients of color, but that generally low survival rate is in large part because people often find out they have lung cancer in late stages. And Neal, I wanted to sort of ask you about your perspective on this, because from what you shared, it seems like it took a little while to diagnose. And with a nagging cough like that, I can see many people just being like, it's just a cough. If it's not,
Right.
Whatever. It's probably just allergies. It'll go away. And that's maybe how some people have found themselves in a much more dire scenario.
And that's one of the things that I learned during my during the research that I've done in the past past couple of months. That cough, the cough itself, often somebody can have lung cancer in them for quite a while before they start coughing. So if cough is the symptom that brings you to the doctor, that can indicate that there has been some spread. I'm not sure whether we mentioned it, that I do have the one mass in my lung, and also spread to one lymph node in the center of my chest. So that has the doctors would classify that as a stage 3A, I believe, which is the stages go up to 4. As a lot of people know, the way that people mark the success of cancer treatment in many ways is if somebody is still alive 5 years after their treatment. So what I'm trying to do, and I think the way that I'm planning on doing it, to preserve my sanity and try to keep a positive outlook. I don't think I'm going to be paying too much attention to the numbers. I think I'm going to be paying attention to feeling good, to following my doctor's orders, to making informed judgments when I can. I think I'll consider it I'll at some point I'll look back and I will and I'll judge how well I've been able to deal with cancer. But I think that the point is that people talk about fighting it, people talking about beating it. Right now I'm going to be living with cancer.
Yeah.
And I think that I want my life to be happy and healthy and hopeful. And I am very encouraged. Right now I'm feeling strong. Thankfully I'm relatively young. I'm 63. I'm in relatively good health, besides having cancer. So let's keep going. Let's see where we end up. I'm looking forward to it. I'm healthy. I've got some great doctors. I've got wonderful support from my family, from my friends. WTOP has been wonderful in saying, do what you need, do what you prefer. let us know what we can do to help. So that, I love my job. So, my hope is to keep reporting and keep being in touch with, with people who've, I've made these connections with over the years.
Well, Neal, we thank you so much for making the time for us and sharing your story with us here today.
My pleasure. I'm glad to do it. I think I'll probably do some stuff once I start my treatment. And of course, I'd always be glad to catch up with you and see where things are as we get going.
Wonderful. We wish you the best of luck, Neal. We'll be here for you.
Thank you, my friends.
And coming up after the break, Neal is not alone here. There's a growing movement among doctors in this country to really increase access to screening for lung cancer. We'll talk about what that looks like and how you can learn more.
Backed by the experience of its hardworking members, Steamfitters Local 602 is ready to take on your next commercial, heating, cooling, HVAC, or refrigeration project. Steamfitters Local 602 adds value to our community through its partnerships with local contractors and building owners, all while keeping the focus on improving the lives of its members and their families throughout the DMV. For work that's on time and on budget, go to steamfitters-602.org to schedule your next project. That's steamfitters-602.org. Steamfitters Local 602. Changing lives.
Explain your DNA on 10 cases, man.
You're inside the police interrogation room with the alleged Potomac River rapist.
I'm not guilty on any of this stuff.
So calm, so reasonable. Could this be the man who terrorized women for 9 years before murdering a brilliant scientist 2 decades ago? Experience one of the most fascinating true crime podcasts available. Join crime reporter Paul Wagner for Unknown Subject, Season 3 of WTOP's American Nightmare series. Search American Nightmare Podcast on all podcast platforms.
And before we go, there's one thing that Neal said that really is sticking with me. And he says, knowing was better than worrying, right? And and he thought that, hearing the words, "you have cancer," would make his head explode. But he said, in fact, actually knowing, getting a screening and figuring out the reality of a situation was actually freeing in some sense.
I feel like a lot of us have been in that situation, even if it wasn't as serious as Neal's diagnosis. You have that moment where you're like, oh gosh, could this be something really worse? And I can see how just having the truth, especially being in the business we are in, where we're always seeking the truth. Just to share, the U.S. has made this big push to raise awareness to lung cancer screenings. Last year, a task force created by President Biden to fight cancer expanded screening recommendations to anyone 50 to 80 years old who has a smoking history. I think they were coming up with some slogan that said 2 packs a week or 2 packs a day or something. But basically, if you are a regular smoker, you should be screened.
Right.
But radon, secondhand smoke, even air pollution can increase your risk. So you don't have to have been a smoker to be at risk of this, especially some of our, older generation. Smoking is sort of less
ubiquitous.
Prevalent in our area now. But our parents growing up, a lot of people smoked in the house and in bars and restaurants. An oncologist quote that got me, there was an article on WTOP you guys can find, and we'll link it to this podcast. But this oncologist said, of all the progress made in cancer survival in the last several years, a large percentage of that has been specifically in lung cancer. So lung cancer is the cancer type with the most dramatic advances in cancer therapies. And that's certainly a welcome change, because for a long time there was no progress. So we heard that 25%, and again, you hear that percentage, it's not an amazing number.
No, it's not.
But again, these cancer screenings make all the difference, because if you catch it early, that changes the game. So we obviously wish the best for Neal. You can find his story on his Twitter. And again, we'll link all the stuff that you guys need to know. If you are concerned about a loved one or have some lingering thoughts for yourself, we can learn more about it on WTOP.com. And that'll do it for us today on the DMV Download.
We're brought to you by Steamfitters Local 602, and our music is by Real World.
Rate our show and review it if you get the chance. And check us out on social media, where we're sharing posts from behind the scenes every single day.
The DMV Download is a product of WTOP News. Listen on 103.5 FM in the D.C. area, 107.7 FM in Virginia, 103.9 FM in Frederick, Maryland, online at WTOP.com, and of course on the WTOP News app. Have a great night, and we'll see you tomorrow.